Tolani's breath came in ragged gasps, her small body trembling as she knelt on the damp earth. Her tears mingled with the dirt on her cheeks, and her hands shook as she clutched the hem of her dress. "Uncle, please, I swear, I won't tell anyone. Please, let me go," she sobbed, her voice breaking with desperation. The four boys surrounded her, their faces shadowed by the looming trees. Bode, the oldest of the group, loomed over her, a cold sneer on his face. His eyes glinted with malice. "Shut up!" Bode spat, his voice sharp and cruel. "You're not going anywhere." Bayo, the youngest of the group, shifted uncomfortably. He looked at Tolani with hesitation, his fists clenched at his sides. "Maybe we should just let her go. This isn't right," he said quietly. Bode turned to him, his expression hardening. "Go stand watch now." Reluctantly, Bayo obeyed, retreating to the edge of the forest, where the dense foliage concealed the scene from view. As he stood there, the sounds of the forest filled his ears, rustling leaves, distant birds, and Tolani's soft whimpers. His stomach churned with guilt, but he didn't dare turn back. Tolani cries grew weaker as Bode, Tade and Kunle closed in around her. "Please, please," she whispered, her strength fading. Bode knelt down, grabbing her chin roughly. "Stop crying. You brought this on yourself," he hissed. Tade and Kunle exchanged uneasy glances, but neither spoke. The tension in the air was thick, but Bode's grip on the situation was unyielding. Tolani's sob became shallow gaps, her small hands trying to push them away, but it was useless. Bayo stood at the edge of the forest, every whimper and gasp driving a nail into his conscience. He pressed his fist into his palms, biting down on his lips so hard it bled, trying to drown out her cries. Why didn't I stop them? The question gnawed at him, but fear kept him frozen. Then suddenly the forest fell silent. The stillness unnerved him. Bayo glanced over his shoulder, his heart pounding. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours until Bode, Tade and Kunle emerged from the trees. Their faces eerily calm, their shirts disheveled, but their expression unreadable. Kunle was the first to speak, a wicked grin on his face. "That was easier than I thought," Bode smirked, wiping his hands on his pants as if cleaning away the filth. "She didn't even put up a fight." But Bayo felt a sickening dread rise in his chest. He swallowed hard, forcing his legs to move as he approached the place where Tolani had fallen. The air felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on his chest. "Guys, I think she's dead." Bayo's voice trembled as he knelt beside her motionless body. His hands hovered over her neck, searching for a pulse, but there was nothing. Panic surged through him. "She's not breathing." "Don't touch her," Tade snapped, a wide look in his eyes. His cheeks were red where Tolani had scratched him, a trail of blood drying on his skin. "That stupid girl scratched me. If she wasn't dead already, I would have killed her myself." Kunle kicked a nearby rock, his voice laced with indifference. "It's done. No one is going to miss her." Bayo stood frozen, his hand still shaking from where it had hovered over Tolani's body. What have we done? The horror of the actions was sinking in, but it was too late. There was no going back. The low hum of bass heavy music filled the private suites where Bode, Kunle and Tade lodged in plush leather chairs, their drinks glistening in the dim lights. The room was sleek, designed with dark wood paneling and modal accents, giving it an air of exclusivity. They sat with the air of men who owned the night, relaxed and confident, their conversations flowing easy between businesses, women and their shared past. Bode took a long sip from his glass, the ice clinking softly. His eyes gleamed with amusement as Kunle teased him. "How's that your baddie girlfriend?" Kunle asked, leaning back, a smirk dancing on his lips. Bode snorted, waving his hands dismissively. "You mean Shalewa? That girl is a foolish girl, Jare," he said, shaking his head. Kunle raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Ha! What do you mean? I thought you were enjoying the ride." Bode rolled his eyes. "Enjoying care? Bad guy like me, ripe in my 30s, and this girl starts talking about marriage. Imagine, oh, marriage." He leaned forward. "She wants to tie me down. Tie me down." Kunle let out a loud laugh, slapping his thigh. "Ha, Bode, that's how they are, these girls. They think a little romance means a ring." Tade, lunging with his shirt half opened, chuckled as he swelled his drink. Very foolish girl indeed, who turns pleasure into bondage. He took a sip, a bitter smile creeping onto his face. "If I had known better, I wouldn't have married Oluchi. Now I have to deal with all our wahala every day." The laughter filled the suite. As they bantered, the sound of stilettos clicking against the marble floor caught their attention. The room seemed to pause for a moment as a woman entered the club, her presence drawing every eye in the space. She was stunning, a beautiful lady dressed in a red dress that clung to her figure like a second skin. The slit at her thighs revealed just enough to spark intrigue, and her long dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, shimmering under the dim lights. Her bold crimson lips coiled into a sly smile as she walked confidently towards the bar, her eyes scanning the room like she was fully aware of the attention she commanded. Men began to approach her, drawn by her allure. One by one, they tried their luck, but she declined each with a polite smile, her eyes glinting with amusement. From the suit, Bode's gaze locked onto her. A slow, predatory grin spread across his face. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Bode said, pushing himself from the chair with a lazy grace. "There's a damsel in distress that needs rescuing." Kunle and Tade exchanged knowing glances, chuckling. "Bode, Baba for the girls," Tade hailed. Raising his glass, Kunle followed with a mock salute, smirking. "Go and conquer, my guy." Bode adjusted his jacket, smoothing his shirt as he made his way towards the woman. His swagger was undeniable, his confidence unshaken. The other men fell back as he approached, sensing the shift in the room. It was no ordinary man, it was Bode, and he never failed to get what he wanted. The woman's eyes flickered up to him as he neared, her expression unreadable. Up close, she was even more stunning, her skin glued under the club's soft lighting, her posture poised and elegant despite the suggestive outfit. Bode flashed eyes, charming smile, leaning slightly towards her. "I see. You've been turning down all these offers, but you haven't met me yet." Her eyes sparkled with amusement and she tilted her head. "Is that so?" "That's right. I can see you're looking for something different, and I happen to offer that." Bode said smoothly, his voice low and confident. He stepped closer, lowering his tone as if they shared a secret. "How about we go somewhere more private?" The woman's lips curved into a mysterious smile. She didn't answer immediately, but her gaze lingered on him. Calculating, after a bit, she nodded. "Lead the way." Bode grinned, the thrill of the chase making his pulse quicken. He extended his hand, which she took lightly, her touch soft but firm. Turning to his friends, he winked. "We're heading to the room," he announced, referring to the private suite they always kept on reserve. Kunle and Tade hooted in approval, raising their glasses once again. "Bode, Baba for the girls," Kunle repeated. Laughing, Tade slapped the armrest of the chair, grinning like a proud spectator. Bode led the woman through the club, his arm around her waist, guiding her towards the staircase that led to the exclusive suite upstairs. As they ascended, the music grew distant, the noise of the club fading into a low hum. The air between them was charged. But as they approached the private room, Bode's mind flickered with a strange sense of deja vu. Something about this woman felt different, but he brushed it off, his ego too strong to entertain doubt. The room was as luxurious as ever, plush velvet couches, dim lighting, and expensive bottles of champagne on the table. Bode closed the door behind them, turning to the woman, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. But when she turned to face him, her smile was gone, replaced by a look of chilling calm. She stood in the center of the room, her eyes locking onto his, with an intensity that made Bode falter for just a moment. "You don't even remember me, do you?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Bode froze, confusion flashing across his face. A smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" The woman's eyes darkened, her voice hardening. "You don't remember Tolani, do you?" The name hit Bode like a punch to the gut. His mind raced, dredging up memories he had buried deep. He took a step back, his pulse quickening. But before he could speak, she continued. "I've waited years for this moment," she whispered, her voice laced with quiet rage. "But now you're going to pay." But his heart pounded in his chest as the woman stepped closer, her once sultry voice now cold and filled with menace. The name Tolani echoed in his head, dredging up memories he had tried to bury. The forest, the helpless girl, her pleading cries. His throat tightened, and for the first time in a long time, Bode felt fear coil in his stomach. He swallowed hard, forcing a chuckle, trying to regain his composure. "Look, if this is some kind of joke." But before he could finish, the woman's eyes flickered with an airy light, glowing amber like the eyes of a predator. Her smile twisted into something sinister, and the air in the room seemed to shift, growing heavier, oppressive. Suddenly, her skin began to ripple, her form bending and twisting in ways that no human body could. Her limbs elongated, her bones cracking as they reshaped, her fingers merging into scales that gleamed under the dim light. Her legs melded together, forming a long, thick tail, and her once beautiful face distorted into a monstrous visage, her lips parting to reveal long, sharp fangs. Bode stumbled back in horror, his eyes wild with disbelief. What? What the hell are you? He stammered, his voice trembling. The woman, no, the creature, let out a low, menacing hiss. Her body now fully transformed into a massive serpent, coiled around the room. Her scales shimmered, black and red. Her enormous head rising above him. The flick of her tongue sent a shiver down his spine. You don't remember me, the snake woman hissed. Her voice now a deep, gusty sound. But I remember you, Bode. I remember everything you did to me, to Tolani. Bode's breath came in shallow gaps. As he backed into the door, his hands fumbled at the handle, twisting frantically, but the door wouldn't budge. He yanked harder, banging on it with all his might. His voice cracked as he screamed, "Help! Somebody help me!" he yelled, panic surging through him. His fist pounded on the thick wood, but the music from the club downstairs drowned out his cries. No one could hear him. He was trapped. The snake advanced, a massive body slithering closer, filling the room with an unsettling grace. Her eyes, burning with malice, never left his face. But his heart raced, his body trembling as he pressed himself against the door, desperation flooding his veins. "Stay away!" he shouted, but his voice was thin, fragile. He reached for anything to defend himself, but the room seemed to close in on him, suffocating him in fear. The serpent let out a low, sinister laugh, a forked tongue flickering in and out. "You showed no mercy to a little girl, and now I'll show none to you." Before Bode could react, the snake reared back, a massive head towering over him. Then, with a terrifying speed, she launched. Her jaw opened wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and she clamped down on his leg. Bode screamed, the pain shooting through him like fires as he collapsed to the ground, clutching his leg in agony. But the pain was only the beginning. A strange sensation began to course through his body, his limbs tingling and then stiffening. His bones began to shrink, his skin pulling tight. Bode's scream turned into a gasped cry as his hands shrank into tiny paws, his vision blurring. His body shivered and contorted, his size dwindling rapidly until he was no longer a man but a small terrified rat, trembling in the corner of the room. He squeaked in fear, his tiny heart beating rapidly as he looked up at the giant serpent that loomed over him. The snake eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Now you're the prey," she hissed, a massive form circling around him, her coils tightening. "This is your punishment, Bode." Bode, now a rat, squeaked frantically, darting from side to side, trying to find an escape. But the serpent moved too fast, her body striking with precision, trapping him in a coil that squeezed the air from his tiny lungs. In one swift motion, the snake opened her jaw, wide, and swallowed him whole. The room felt silent. The serpent's form shifted back into that of a beautiful woman, her red dress flawless, her lips coiling into a satisfied smile. She glanced around the room, her eyes glinting with the fury of vengeance. With a final glance at the door, she walked out, leaving no trace of what had just transpired. The club continued its revelry below, oblivious to the nightmare that had unfolded in the private suite above. Bayo jolted awake, his breath coming in sharp, ragged gaps. His chest heaved, and his heart pounded so lightly in his ears that for a moment he couldn't hear anything. His skin was slick with sweat, the dampness of the sheets clinging to his body as he sat up trembling. "No!" The scream had barely escaped his throat, and now it hung in the air. The sound of his own voice unsettling him further. His eyes darted across the room, disorientated, as though expecting to see the remnant of the nightmare clinging to the shadows. The room was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the window. The rhythmic hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound. Slowly, his racing heart began to settle, but the terror from the dream clung to him. Refusing to let go, his hands were shaking as he wiped the sweat from his brow. Beside him, a 6-year-old daughter lay coiled up under her blankets, her small body rising and falling with the peaceful rhythm of sleep. She was oblivious to her father's torments, lost in her own innocent dreams. For a fleeting moment, the sight of her brought Bayo a sense of calm. a reminder of the only pure thing in his world. He exhaled shakily, trying to steady himself. It was just a dream. But no matter how many times he told himself that, the images refused to fade. The giant snake, its fangs gleaming under the pale light, its coiling tightening around the man, swallowing him whole. The man's scream, cut off so abruptly, still echoed in his mind, and Bayo shuddered. He reached over and gently touched his daughter's hand, needing the connection, needing to ground himself in reality. Her skin was warm, and she stirred slightly at his touch, but didn't wake. Thank God she didn't hear me scream. But that dream, it wasn't just terrifying, it felt real, too real. Bayo leaned back against the headboard, pressing his hand to his face, trying to make sense of the terror that had just consumed him in his sleep. He had dreamed before, bad dreams, nightmares that made him wake in cold sweats, but this was something different. This felt like a message, a warning. His mind flashed back to the details of his dream. The darkened room, the man terrified and scrabbling for an escape. The way the door wouldn't open no matter how hard he tried. Bayo remembered watching helplessly as the snake's massive body coiled around the man, squeezing the life out of him. The final horrifying moment when the man's form had shifted, becoming a rat. And then, nothing, the snake had devoured him in one swift, merciless bite. Bayo rubbed his temples, trying to shake the images from his mind. What the hell is wrong with me? He muttered under his breath. He glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It was 3:47 a.m. He still had a few more hours until dawn, but there was no way he was going back to sleep, not after that. He got up quietly, careful not to wake his daughter, and padded slowly. Across the room, his footsteps were light, but every creak of the wooden floor seemed too loud in the dead of night. He made his way to the kitchen, hoping a glass of water would calm his nerves. Bayo stood by the zinc, staring blankly out the window into the quiet, dark street below. The glass of water sat untouched on the counter. Forgotten, his mind was elsewhere, still trapped in the nightmare. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the dream than his mind playing tricks on him. It was too vivid, the terror too sharp, and the man there. There was something similar about him, something familiar, something that gnawed at Bayo, though he couldn't place it. Taking a deep breath, Bayo tried to focus. It's just a nightmare, Bayo, let it go. But deep down, he knew better. The man in the dream, it was like he had seen him before. As he leaned against the counter, staring into the blackness outside, a cold realization crept over him. His mind started to piece things together slowly, like a puzzle he had been avoiding for years. But they whispered, the name slipping from his lip like a curse. The past surged back, unbeaten, filling his mind with memories he had tried hard to bury. The forest, the pleading cries of a little girl, the twisted laughter of teenage boys, his own guilt, his cowardice. He hadn't stopped them, he hadn't saved her. Tolani. Bayo's hand gripped the edge of the counter until his knuckles turned white. It couldn't be, he hadn't thought about that day in years. Hadn't spoken the names of those boys, now men, who had been his friends, Bode, Kunle, Tade. And now, that dream, the man being swallowed by the snake, could it have been Bode? His breath quickened. Was this some kind of sick warning, or had his conscience finally caught up with him after all these years? Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the haze of his thoughts. Daddy! Bayo turned sharply to see his daughter standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, a small frame, silhouetted by the dim light from the hallway. Quickly tried to compose himself, forcing a smile. Hey baby, why are you up? She shuffled over to him, a stuffed bear clutched in her arms. I couldn't find you, Daddy. Bayo crouched down to her level, his heart heavy with guilt for waking her. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Daddy just had a bad dream, that's all. Her big eyes searched his face. Was it a scary dream? He nodded, brushing a hand over her hair. Yeah, it was, but don't worry, it's over now. She hugged her beard tighter. Do you need a hug, Daddy? Hugs makes bad dreams go away. Bayo had clenched. He put her into his arms, holding her close. Yeah, I think I do. As he held her, the weight of the nightmare lingered in his mind. The past he had tried to bury was rising to the surface again. He could feel it creeping into his thoughts. Days went by, and though the tension from that night had dulled, Bayo couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that haunted him. But life moved on, and today was a typical afternoon as he arrived at his daughter Vivian's school to pick her up. He spotted her standing under a tree, her face lit up with excitement, deep in conversation with someone. A soft laugh drifted through the air. Curious, Bayo squinted, trying to make out who she was talking to. Maybe it's a new form teacher she keeps measuring on, he thought, as he walked closer, but when he saw who it was, his steps faltered. A woman knelt beside Vivian, her hands resting gently on the child's shoulder. She was stunning, her beauty striking him with an unexpected force. Her smile was warm and bright, her hair falling in soft waves that framed her glowing face. As she laughed at something Vivian said, her presence seemed to draw all the light around her. Dad, Dad, Vivian called out, snapping him out of his trance. He blinked, realizing he had stopped in his tracks, staring like a fool. The woman looked up at him, her eyes meeting his with a gentle curiosity. Mr. Williams, are you okay? Her voice was melodious, like a soothing melody that sent a shiver down his spine. Bayo swallowed hard. Feeling a bit flustered, huh? He stammered, wiping at his lips as if to erase the drool he was sure he had there. He straightened, composing himself quickly. Oh, hi, Vivian. Is this your auntie you've been talking about? Vivian beamed, gripping the woman's hand tighter. Yes, Daddy, this is Auntie Tola. The woman stood up gracefully, extending a hand. Hello, Mr. Williams. My name is Tola, she smiled, a soft warmth in her eyes that sent his pulse racing. Bayo cleared his throat, taking her hand in his. Please call me Bayo, he said, trying to sound smooth, but feeling anything but. Her hand was soft, a touch lingering in a way that made his stomach flip. How are you finding the school so far? Tola tilted her head, her smile widening. It's wonderful, actually. The staff are kind, and Vivian has told me all about her favorite activities. She's such a bright girl. Yes, she is, Bayo replied, his gaze drifting to his daughter, who was looking up at Tola with pure adoration. I'm glad she has someone like you around. Bayo found himself feeling more at ease, drawn to Tola in a way he hadn't felt in years. Do you need a ride? Bayo offered, hoping she would say yes. Tola hesitated for a moment before nodding. That would be lovely, thank you. The drive to her apartment was filled with light conversation, but Bayo couldn't help stealing glances at her. Her laughter was like music, and the way her eyes lit up when she spoke stirred something deep inside him. He hadn't felt this drawn to someone in a long time. When they arrived, he hesitated before saying goodbye. Thanks for the ride, Bayo, Tola said, as she stepped out of the car, her hand resting on the door. It was really nice meeting you. The pleasure was mine, he replied. That night, as Bayo tucked Vivian into bed, his mind wandered back to Tola. There was something about her, a pull he couldn't explain. Hey, Vivian, he asked as he smoothed down her blanket. What do you think of Auntie Tola? Vivian smiled sleepishly, her eyes half closed. She's the best, Daddy. She's so nice, and she tells me fun stories. Bayo nodded, smiling to himself. Yeah, she seems great. As he left Vivian's room, Bayo found himself thinking of Tola again. Unable to shake the way her smile had made him feel, there was something about her that intrigued him, something that he couldn't stop thinking about. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Tola stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair as she prepared for bed. Her thoughts were tangled, but one image stood out clearly. Bayo, his warm smile, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, how its presence seemed to fill the space around them. She couldn't help but smile at the memory, but as she reached for her necklace, her smile faltered. The snake-shaped pendant began to shift, its surface shimmering before it transformed into a large real snake that coiled around her waist. Tola stared at the serpent, her heart heavy with the reminder of who she was, what she was. The snake's eyes glowed as it hissed, its presence a stark reminder of the vengeance she had sworn to carry out. There is no time for love, the creature seemed to whisper in her mind. Focus on the task at hand. Tola clenched her jaw, gently stroking the snake's head as she whispered, I know, I won't forget. But even as she said the words, Bayo's face floated back into her mind, making her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. After the snake slithered back into the pendant form, she sighed, finishing her skincare routine before lying down in bed. The moonlight streamed through the window, casting soft shadows on the wall. She stared up at the ceiling, Bayo's face flashing in her thoughts over and over. She couldn't stop thinking about him, no matter how hard she tried. Back at his home, Bayo sat on the couch, his mind racing with thoughts of Tola. Her voice, her smile, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke. It was all he could think about. He shook his head, trying to focus on the television, but nothing could distract him from the memory of her. Vivian called out, open for some insights. Tell me more about Auntie Tola. What else do you like about her? From her bedroom, Vivian called back. She's really nice, Daddy. She's always happy to see me. I think you like her too. Making Bode smile, despite himself. Maybe he did like her, more than he was ready to admit. Both Bayo and Tola lay awake in their separate homes, their hearts beating in sync with the unspoken connection between them. But while Bayo was filled with hope and curiosity, Tola battled the darker forces within her, knowing that her mission left little room for love. It was late into the night, the kind of darkness where the only sounds were the occasional hum of a distant generator and the rhythmic chirp of crickets. Tade was fast asleep, sprawled out on the side of the bed, his breathing deep and steady. His wife Oluchi lay beside him, her head buried in her pillow, savoring the rare tranquility of the night. Suddenly, Tade's phone rang. Cutting through the silence, Oluchi stared, her brow furrowing as she slowly woke up, squinting against the brightness of the phone screen. The name flashing on the caller ID caught her attention immediately. Shalewa. Her heart skipped a beat. Shalewa, she muttered to herself. Blinking the sleep out of her eyes, she nudged Tade, who grumbled and rolled over, trying to ignore the interruption. Who is Shalewa? Oluchi asked, her voice low but filled with suspicion. She sat up, her eyes now wide open, staring at Tade as he grudgingly reached for the phone. Tade blinked at the screen, still half asleep. Babe, it's not what you think, he murmured, wiping a hand over his face. She's Bode's girl. Oluchi narrowed her eyes, crossing her arms. So who exactly is Bode's girl? Is she a new toy now? Tade sighed, his mind struggling to catch up with the situation. No, Oluchi, calm down, he said, trying to soothe her. He sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. She's just Bode's girlfriend, you know. You know Bode, right? She's been around. You've seen her before. Oluchi eyed him, suspicion slowly melting away into a mute irritation. Oh, she muttered, leaning back against the headboard, but keeping her gaze fixed on him. Okay, but why is she calling you in the middle of the night? Tade, now a little more awake, raised an eyebrow and shrugged. Before answering the call, hello, he said cautiously. Almost instantly, a frantic voice came through the speaker, her voice barely coherent between the sobs. Tade, I don't know what to do. I don't know who else to call. Shalewa, calm down, Tade interrupted, his tone firm but concerned. What's going on? What happened? Oluchi, still watching closely, sat up straighter. As she noticed the tension in Tade's voice, something wasn't right. She leaned closer, trying to catch more of the conversation. Through Shalewa's sobs, her words began to spill out in a rush. It's Bode. He hasn't been home since 2 days now. Since you guys went out for boys' night, I called him, messaged him, but nothing. Tade felt his chest tighten. He exchanged a glance with Oluchi, who was now listening intently, concern slowly replacing her earlier irritation. Wait, what do you mean Bode hasn't been home? Tade asked, his voice lowering. That's not possible. He was with me that night, but 2 days? Are you sure? Shalewa's voice cracked on the other end. Yes, I'm sure. He left that night, and I haven't seen him since. I've been calling him, and it's just ringing. No response. I'm so scared, Daddy. Tade clenched his jaw, glancing at Oluchi, who was now sitting fully upright, her expression shifting from suspicion to shared concern. Okay, Shalewa, listen, Tade said, his voice steadying. I'm going to call him right now. Just stay calm, alright? I don't know what to do, Shalewa cried, her voice trembling. I don't want to believe something happened to him, but this isn't like him, Tade. He has never done something like this before. Tade's mind raised and Oluchi's hand gently rubbed his arm, silently offering her support. He gave her a small nod before turning back to the phone. I'll call you back, Shalewa, I said softly. Let me find out what is going on. We'll figure this out together, okay? As Tade hung up, he ran a hand through his hair, his heart pounding in his chest. He stared at his phone for a moment, his mind replaying the last time he had seen Bode. It had been a fun, carefree night, nothing out of the ordinary. But now, Oluchi's soft voice broke through his thoughts. What's going on, Tade? Is Bode missing? He exhaled slowly, his shoulders heavy with worry. It looks like it. Shalewa says he hasn't been home since that night we went out. She's really scared. Oluchi's eyes widened. That's serious. Do you think something could have happened to him? I don't know, Tade said, shaking his head. I'm going to call him now. See if I can reach him. He dialed Bode's number. The call immediately went to voicemail. Bode, it's Tade. Call me back as soon as you get this man. Everyone's worried about you. Tade hung up and let out a frustrated sigh, his hand falling into his lap. Nothing. Oluchi reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. We'll find him. Maybe he just needs some space, but we'll figure it out together. Tade nodded, though the unease in his chest refused to settle. Something didn't feel right. Tade leaned back in his chair, swelling the last of his drink as he spoke. His voice a mixture of frustration and uncertainty. Guy, I've reached out to all Bode's girlfriends. None of them have seen him, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. The bar was dimly lit, with the low hum of music filling the air, but Tade's mind was miles away, thinking about his missing friend. Kunle, sitting across from him, chuckled and took a sip of his beer. Unfazed, Guy relaxed. Bode is probably somewhere with that baddie from the other night and just doesn't want to be disturbed. Kunle said casually, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. It's not like it's the first time Bode has gone MIA with a woman. Tade paused, considering Kunle's words. As much as he wanted to believe that Bode was off on one of his usual escapades, something about this time felt different. Still, he nodded, trying to push his worry aside. True, he said, clinking his glass against Kunle's with a forced smile. They laughed, but Tade's mind couldn't fully relax. Later that night, Bayo tossed and turned in his sleep. His brow damp with sweat as his mind was plagued by a recurring nightmare. In the dream, he saw a man, someone familiar, but whose face he couldn't quite place, running frantically. The man's eyes were wide with fear as he fled from something massive, something terrifying. Suddenly, the ground shook and Bayo saw it, a huge slithering snake, its black scales glittering under a dark sky. The man ran as fast as he could, but the snake was faster, closing the gap between them. Just as the snake fangs were about to sink into the man's back, Bayo jolted awake. His heart racing, his hands trembling. He sat up in bed, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling as he tried to shake off the lingering fear from the nightmare. His room was quiet, but the airy feeling from the dream clung to him, refusing to let go. As the night deepened, Tade and Kule finished their drinks and decided to call it a night. I'll catch you later, man, Kule said, slapping Tade on the back. Before heading to his car, Tade watched him drive off, then got into his own car. The streets almost deserted at this hour. The sky above was heavy, the air thick with the promise of rain. As Tade drove, he felt a familiar sensation, a strange itching on the scar on his face. It was a deep nagging itch, like the wound had just been inflicted again. It always happened on rainy nights, a sensation he couldn't explain. His fingers brushed over the scar absent-mindedly. It rained tonight, he muttered under his breath, glancing up at the darkened clouds. I better hurry home. Just as he was about to accelerate, a flicker of movement on the side of the road caught his eye. Tade squinted through the windshield. His curiosity piqued. There, under the faint glow of a street lamp, was a woman, a slender figure, drenched from head to toe, using her hands to shield herself from the rain. Her dress, which had been sleek and fitting, was now soaked, clinging to her curves like a second skin. Tade licked his lips, leaning forward in the seat for a better look. Tasty, he murmured to himself, a slight grin spreading across his face. He slowed down and rolled down the window as he pulled up beside her. Hello, beautiful, he called out smoothly, his voice drooping with charm. What are you doing out here in the rain at this time of night? The woman turned towards him, and Tade noticed that her face was streaked with tears, her lower lip trembling as she extended her legs slightly, revealing a bruised nail. I fell off an Okada, she said, her voice shaky. The man just drove off without even checking if I was okay. Tade's first concern kicked in immediately. Oh my God, he said, quickly stepping out of the car. That's terrible. Are you hurt badly? He placed a hand around her petite waist, as if to support her, though he couldn't help but feel the warmth of her body through the thin, wet fabric. I think I can walk, she said softly, leaning into him for support. But my knee hurts. Don't worry, Tade said, helping her into the passenger seat of his car. I'll take care of you. As they drove, the woman who introduced herself as Annie explained how she had recently moved to the city to pursue a modeling career. It'd been so hard, she said, her voice still trembling slightly from the shock. I don't know anyone here, and now I've lost all my money to that Okada man who robbed me after the accident. Tade's mind was already racing with romantic thoughts as he listened to her, a beautiful, vulnerable girl in distress. He couldn't have asked for a better situation. Don't worry, Annie, he said, flashing her his reassuring smile. I'll make sure you're safe. Let's get you to an hotel so you can rest. I'll check up on you tomorrow evening. I will make sure they get you new clothes. He dropped her off at a nearby hotel. Watching as she limped towards the entrance, he made sure the receptionist was kind to her, promising Annie he would return. Take care, Annie. Tade said, giving her a little wink before heading back to his car. As he drove home, his mind buzzed with images of Annie, the way her dress had clung to her, a grateful smile. He couldn't wait to see her again. Pulling out his phone, he quickly shot a message to Kunle. Guy, you won't believe the hottie I just met, he typed, grinning to himself. Tolani, back in our hotel room, stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face rippled momentarily, shifting from the soft, innocent features she had worn earlier to the hardened, scarred visage she knew all too well, her true self. She chuckled softly, slipping off her wet dress and letting her hair fall over her shoulders. As she dried it, the cold hair from the hotel hair conditioner brushed against her bare skin. But she barely noticed. All she could think of was Tade's foolish grin, his lust-filled eyes, and how easily he had fallen into her trap. That fool, she muttered, shaking her head, recalling how desperate he had been to impress her. His attempts to play hero, almost laughable. She had counted on it. Men like Tade were predictable, pathetic. The scars she had given him years ago, when he had ruined her life, had become her guiding light. She had traced him and his friends, though she was disappointed at Bayo. The other man she sought was not there. He was missing, but not for long. One step at a time, her lips curled into a wicked smile. Tade was the target, and he wouldn't know what hit him until it was far too late. Tolani moved to the window, her rope trailing behind her, and peering out at the dimly lit city below. Revenge is sweet, she whispered, and I'm going to savor every second of it. At Vivian's school, Bayo sat in his car for a moment, watching the morning hustle of children arriving. His daughter Vivian was busy tugging at her backpack, preparing to hop out. His eyes, however, were glued to someone else, Tola, the teacher standing at the entrance welcoming the students with a smile that lit up the entire street. Today, she had her hair styled in two playful ponytails, and the sight made Bayo chuckle. Dad, you like her, don't you? Vivian's voice broke through his thoughts, mischievous eyes twinkling at him from the back seat. He blinked, flustered. Like who? Auntie Tola, of course. You were staring, Vivian giggled, a tiny voice filled with all the innocence of childhood. But her curiosity was relentless. No, baby, Bayo argued, shaking his head, though his gaze involuntarily flickered back to Tola. I wasn't staring. Vivian's lips curled into a cheeky grin. If you don't like her, I'll tell her. Bayo laughed. Did she ask if I like her? Without answering, Vivian jumped out of the car and ran straight into Tola's arms. Tola laughed, a warm smile brightening even more as she hugged the little girl. Bayo found himself drawn towards them, almost as if an invisible string was pulling him in Tola's direction. Hi, he said. Once he reached her, his voice surprisingly nervous. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment the sounds of the schoolyard seemed to fade away. Hi, Tola replied, her cheek slightly flushed as she released Vivian. I hope you're having a good morning. Bayo smiled. Much better now, he said, before catching himself. I was wondering if you're free this evening. Maybe we could grab dinner? Tola raised an eyebrow, pretending to think it over, as she glanced at Vivian, who was grinning like she had orchestrated the entire moment. Dinner sounds lovely, Tola said softly, her eyes meeting Bayo once more. I love that. Vivian clapped her hands, dancing in the circle. Yes, Daddy and Aunt Tola are going on a date. Bayo laughed, embarrassed but amused by his daughter's antics. Great, I'll get a babysitter for Vivian. So we can... I don't need a babysitter, Vivian interjected. I'm a big girl, Dad. Bayo chuckled, ruffling her hair. We'll see about that, little miss. Later that evening, Tade knocked on the door to Annie's hotel room, his heart racing with anticipation. When she opened the door, dressed in a silk robe that clung to her body, his breath caught in his throat. Honey, he whispered, stepping inside. His eyes devoured her, hunger clear on his face. Relaxed, Tade, she purred. Running a hand down his chest, you seem tense. Tade swallowed hard. He had been thinking about her all day, about the way her body had felt in his hands as he helped her last night, how mysterious she had seemed. He didn't know what it was about her, but she had captivated him entirely. They shared an intimate moment, his hands trembling as he reached for her. But as their closeness intensified, something dark flashed in Annie's eyes. She smiled, a smile that made his blood run cold. Her necklace, a delicate piece that had been resting on her chest, suddenly began to shift. Tade blinked in confusion, watching in horror as the necklace glittered like a living thing, growing longer and thicker. Before he could react, It transformed into a massive snake. The creature coiled itself around him, its scales glistening in the dim light, its eyes locked onto his, filled with malice. Tolani! Tade stammered, finally realizing who she was. The snake's mouth opened wide, its fangs gleaming. It struck him in the neck, sinking its teeth deep into his skin. A burning pain shot through his body and he screamed, but the sound was cut short as his limbs went numb. You remember me now, don't you? Tolani's voice echoed in his head as the venom coursed through his veins. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. Tade's body convulsed, his mouth opening and closing in silent agony as paralysis took hold of him. The last thing he saw before his vision faded was Tolani's smile. Her lips twisted in a triumphant smile. Back at Bayo's home, he was picking Tola for their date. The babysitter cancelled, Bayo explained as he opened the door for her, an apologetic smile on his face. So I couldn't leave Vivian alone. I hope that's alright. Tola smiled as she got into the car. It's fine, Bayo. Besides, Vivian is wonderful company. Vivian sat in the back seat, grinning from ear to ear. We're all going on a date together, she declared proudly. Bayo and Tola shared a laugh, the tension between them easing as they drove into the night, unaware of the gruesome fate that had just befallen Tade. Meanwhile, at the hotel, the authorities were stumped. Tade's lifeless body was discovered in the room, his face frozen in terror. But the CCTV footage showed nothing out of the ordinary, just Tade entering the room alone and never leaving. Oluchi's wife was devastated, and no amount of investigation could explain the bizarre incident. Bayo returned home with Vivian after dropping Tola off at her place. His mind was still racing from the events of the day, but Vivian's sleepy weight in his arms was a small comfort. She stirred slightly as he carried her inside, her tiny arms draping around his neck. He laid her gently in her bed, brushing a stray coil from her forehead before quietly leaving the room. As he settled into his own bed, the exhaustion of the day pulled him under quickly, but peace was fleeting. In his dream, he was a boy again, back in the forest, the same forest where he had left Tolani all those years. The air was thick, humid, and oppressive. The sounds of the forest echoed in his ears, louder than they should have been. Branches creaking, leaves rustling, and a low east slithering through the trees. Bayo's younger self ran, his small legs pumping through the underbrush. But they, Tade, Kunle were ahead, their faces twisted in fear. Behind them, a massive snake slid through the tall grass, its scales shimmering in the dim light. Its body was impossibly long, coiling and uncoiling with terrifying speed as it closed in on them. Run faster, but they shouted, his voice high-pitched and desperate. Bayo's heart pounded in his chest, his breath coming in ragged gaps. He stomped over a root, nearly falling, but forced himself to keep moving. The snake eyes glowed in the darkness, its forked tongue flickering out as it hissed again, the sound like a death knell in Bayo's ears. Suddenly, Kunle exclaimed as the snake launched at him, sinking its fangs into his leg. He thrashed, his hands clawing at the air as the venom spread through his veins. Bayo wanted to help, but fear rooted him to the spot. He could only watch as the snake dragged Kunle's lifeless body into the shadows, its eyes locking onto Bayo's. The snake gaze pierced him, and in that moment, Bayo knew it wasn't just an animal. It was something more, something ancient, something vengeful. Tolani, he whispered in his dream, his voice trembling. The snake reeled back, preparing to strike. Bayo screamed. He woke up with a jolt, his body drenched in sweat. His heart was pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Without thinking, he threw off the covers and dropped to his knees beside the bed. His hands clasped together in desperate prayer. God, please, I don't know what's happening, but protect me. Protect Vivian. Forgive me for what happened to Tolani, please. I never wanted this. His voice cracked, his words coming out in choked sobs as the guilt of the past weighed heavily on him. Please help me. The next morning, the news hit him like a punch to his gut. Kunle was dead, choked on venomous poison in his own home. They said his new mate was nowhere to be found. Bayo stared at the TV, his mind struggling to process the information. His hands trembled as he turned the volume up. The news anchor's voice was calm, almost too calm for the horror being described. Kunle Adewale, 35, was found dead in his apartment this morning. Sources say that the cause of death appears to be a venomous substance, but authorities are still investigating. His maid, who was reportedly hired only last week, is currently missing and is being sought for questioning. Bayo's blood ran cold. He knew it wasn't just a random maid. It was her, Tolani, back for revenge. The next day was a Saturday, and Bayo wasted no time in going to his pastor. He arrived early at the church, his heart heavy. As he sat in the small office, the pastor, a calm and understanding man in his late 50s, sat across from him, his hands folded in his lap as he listened. "I've been having these nightmares," Bayo began, his voice hoarse. "They're about something that happened when I was younger, something terrible." The pastor nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I was there when Tolani died. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. I didn't stop them, and now I think she's coming for us. Kule is dead, and I don't think it's over," Bayo's voice cracked. With emotions as he relayed the dreams, the memories, the overwhelming guilt, the pastor sat in silence for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "The past has a way of catching up with us," Bayo, he said finally, "especially when it's not been laid to rest properly. Tolani's spirit may be seeking revenge, but I believe there's still hope for you." "What do I do?" Bayo asked, desperation clear in his voice. "I want you to fast," the pastor said. "Pray deeply. The past is closer to you than you know, but God is always closer. Seek his forgiveness and protection, and I will pray for you as well." That weekend, Tolani had a dream of the past. For the first time in years, she saw the faces of the boys clearly. Bode, Kunle, Tade, and Bayo. She woke up with a start, her heart pounding as the realization hit her like a tidal wave. Bayo, the man she had fallen in love with, the one who had taken her heart, he was one of them. The next evening, Tola arrived at Bayo's home. He was surprised to see her standing at his door. "Tola, what are you doing here?" he asked, puzzled. I saw your address on Vivian's file at school," she explained, her eyes darting around nervously. Something about her seemed off. Bayo frowned. "Are you okay?" Tola stepped inside, her movements slow and deliberate. There was a strange tension in the air, something Bayo couldn't quite place. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice was distant. Vivian suddenly appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, why does Auntie Tola have fangs?" Bayo's heart stopped. His eyes widened as he looked at Tola. "No, not Tola, Tolani." Her form shifted before his eyes, her human skin giving way to shimmering scales, her eyes glowing like the serpent in his dreams. "Tolani," Bayo's voice was barely a whisper. "I've waited for this," Tolani said, her voice trembling with emotion. "For years I've waited to take my revenge, but now that I'm here, I don't know if I can." Bayo dropped to his knees, his voice shaking. "Please, Tolani, I was never part of it. I didn't want to hurt you. I spent my whole life running from it, from them. I swear, I'm not like them." Tears welled up in Tolani's eyes as she shifted between her human and snake forms, her voice crackling with pain. "I was given a second chance by the goddess of snakes to take my revenge, but I can't do this anymore." She looked at Bayo, then at Vivian, who was watching with wild, innocent eyes. "I wish you both happiness," Tolani whispered, her voice soft and broken. She shifted fully into her serpent form, her long body gliding across the floor as she slithered towards the door. Bayo watched in stunned silence as she disappeared into the night, her form melting into the darkness. A heavy stillness settled over the house. For the first time in years, Bayo felt a sense of peace. The nightmare was over, or was it? Hey besties! Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your support. I don't take it for granted. If you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe already. On this channel, I currently have a membership program going on, and it's just for a little fee. You get exclusive perks that not just anybody gets. You get to tell me the kind of stories, titles, topics you want to see, and I take them as priority. You also get to be the first person to see my new uploads before any other person, and sneak peeks of my behind the scenes projects. So anytime you're waiting for a new video and I haven't uploaded, just check out my other videos. I'm sure you'll find something you like. And as always, I'll see you in my next video. Bye besties! Mwah.